Michael Duffy, he co-writes the cover story for this week's new issue.
Whoa, look at
And the
that.
cover image is the third in their series of Trump meltdown covers. Yeah, The Unpresident is the title of your piece, and you and Nancy Gibbs write about the revelations in Fire and Fury and how they may hurt Trump's ability to govern. What else did you find?
Well, I think the book, with about a week's hindsight now, actually tees up three things. Obviously, it validates what all of us have been seeing and reading and hearing for a year, but the White House keeps denying, as you just reported, with their ability to alter reality to their own liking. So it really has, as you know, clarified and validated all the things that we've been imagining and reporting all in one place. It tees up fitness, obviously. And that is going to go a lot of different ways. And it's not just fitness mentally or physically. It's about, wanting to do the job, wanting to grow into the role, wanting to, rise to the challenge that history hands you, as so many other presidents have done in more difficult times than these. And finally, it lays bare all of the factions in this White House that are just, were, at least as the time of the writing, at war with each other. So it's really the first vivisection of this in all in one place. And while there are problems with it, this really resets his presidency. And you can see in the last 48 hours he's trying to cope.
Michael, you and Nancy have obviously studied a lot of presidents, a lot of post-presidencies. With your sense of history of the White House and the presidency and post-presidents, and the fact that you've spent so much of your time focused in this area, after the first year, put it in perspective for us as much as you can. How much of a radical shift, how much from the past has this first year been in the Trump White House?
It's almost impossible to describe. They all have challenges and difficult first years. It's just a tricky job to get used to, even when you come to it, when you've been preparing for it all your life, or you've been in leadership positions like Eisenhower. It's always a hard transition for all of them. But usually after 9 or 10 months, whether it's Bush 1 or Bush 2 or Clinton or even Obama, they all adjust and they reset themselves and they look at their skill sets and they say, okay, what is it going to take for me and what team of folks to get this done? And how can I rise to it? Because it's bigger than any of them.
Michael, when you look at, excuse me, it's Willie, when you look at that first year, you can just continue your point here of the presidency. As you think where you sat a year ago, what you might have expected a Trump presidency to look like, how was that different from what it's actually been now that you sit here a year later?
Well, I think, I think there were a lot of people around Trump who thought they were going to have to surround him like flying buttresses and provide the stuff he doesn't have. What's so revealing about I think Fire and Fury in particular is that it reveals him to be incurious and not interested in information and hostile to briefings and hostile to people who try to tell him things. And his own staff says, he's difficult and not that smart and not that interested in being smarter. So those are kinds of challenges that most presidents that I've covered, and it's been about 5 or 6 closely and a bunch not so closely, find a workaround. They fix themselves. They get people who can help them with their problems. And he shows no sign of it. And that's why I think this reality shifting thing is so concerning.
That's one of the problems, Mike, is that he's overmatched by the office. He's overmatched by history. That doesn't put him in a unique position. There have been other presidents who have been overmatched, but surrounded themselves by able people that could help them move forward. Bill Clinton was overmatched terribly the first 6 to 9 months of the presidency. But Gergen, Panetta, others came in and said, Mr. President, this is how it's done.
Well, perhaps it's because this president doesn't think of being overmatched, because he doesn't think of the challenges, because he doesn't concentrate on the challenges. And Michael, it seems, we were talking about this earlier, we now have a president, really, it's a presidency, it's a cult of personality more than it is a presidency. It's, rooted around celebrity rather than competence. And we were talking earlier about how long will it take, if it does take, to repair the damage that's being done by this sort of cult of personality presidency.
Yeah, I don't know the answer. When you asked that before, I thought it was an impossible one to know the answer of. All of us as Americans have a stake in this office. All of us do. And what's tough, I think, is that the president seems to think only he has a stake. And that's just a complete misreading of what the office is about, and what it's to do, and what it's for, and how he or whoever is in that job is supposed to think. So he really needs to in some ways, get some help, take the help, which is even harder than getting it, and then try, if he hopes to be a success, to change.
So, Brad,
but it's hard to imagine.
He's got some pretty strong personalities in there, and Kelly, Mattis. Do you think, I mean, we're a year in, if he could be helped, wouldn't we know by now?
Yeah, I mean, his basic problem is...
Wouldn't he not be tweeting?
His basic problem isn't that he's overmatched by the office, he's overmatched by himself.
Yeah.
All of Trump's core problems, political problems, sprang from defects in his personality. If he hadn't insulted John McCain as he did in 2015, McCain may not have been the deciding vote to save Obamacare. If he wasn't so irascible and impulsive and paranoid, he wouldn't have fired Jim Comey, or he would have fired him his first day of office, and this Russia investigation wouldn't probably be defining his presidency. And this is a point, again, conservatives used to say, character is destiny. Character is the core consideration when it comes to the presidency. Every problem that Trump has had springs directly from who he is, which means that you can get Mattis, you can get McMaster, you can get serious people in there, but ultimately it's this man who will define his office.
Including the thing that haunts him every second of every day, and that is, of course, Mueller. He has Mueller because he fired Comey. Heidi, final question for Michael Duffy.
Michael, we've talked a lot about 2017 themes being autocracy, authoritarianism. I'm wondering, looking forward to 2018, how much do you think the word kleptocracy should start to become part of this discussion? And I'm gonna promote a little bit of USA Today reporting here on our front page today. We found that the president had $35 million in real estate sales in 2017, with a 70% increase in the number of those sales going to essentially unidentifiable shell companies. Now, there could be explanations for this, like people just don't want their names identified with Trump properties. But according to our reporters, there's a lot of people who say that these could be used for influence buying, influencing-seeking groups, including foreign people who've purchased these properties that we were able to identify. How much do we really have a sense of whether this is going on behind the scenes because of the complex nature of these financial transactions?
Well, I think we have cues, Heidi. One of the most interesting cues of the last couple of weeks was, it was in, I think actually in July or August, is in an interview with Times. President Trump warned Special Counsel Mueller not to look at his family finances, which, of course, was a great big red flag to go ahead and look at his family finances. And I think that's another theme here, the extent to which outside of government, the Trump and Kushner family finances are in this target set of Rob Mueller at the moment, has a kind of existential mind-concentrating piece for this White House now, because those are things that have probably never been looked at, and if you put them in the context of foreign policy now, that could get really ugly. Wow. Kleptocracy is a little different. That's when you steal from the government. But I do think the issue of the family's finances will move front and center in this year.